Long weekends mean lots of work. This weekend, I was astutely aware of the situation that was happening in my garage coming out of a long winter. It's time to get the spring cleanup happening. And this weekend, I have to tell you, I was ruthless, absolutely ruthless about the stuff that I was purging and donating and dumping out of the garage. I don't even know, it becomes a holding area for all of the kids to put their stuff, for my husband's tools, all sorts of garbage. But I'm astutely aware of how my junk and my belongings are eventually going to be a problem for my kids. And I don't mean problem, but I mean their responsibility to purge and to dump. So I have to think about things ruthlessly because I wonder about the day where I'm not there. What are the kids going to do with all of the stuff that is gathered around the crawl space, the basement, the storage room, the shed, and the garage? So this weekend, I was ruthless, like I said. Everything out and got to wash the floor of the garage, and I'm happy again, living decluttered and happy. Not that that's how any normal person wants to spend their long weekend, but that's how it was for me, a mix of work and decluttering. I hope my in-laws get to watch this video because their garage is also filled to the gills, especially at the cottage, and one day that is going to be our issue to clean up once they are no longer here. I know maybe I'm overstepping, it's not my garage, but I know it's going to become my issue down the road. Well, this video is not about decluttering garages, I promise. It's about how to have a conversation with your parents about downsizing. I'm going to leave you with some tips here today that I promise you are going to make your life a little easier, hopefully your shoulders a little lighter, because they're strategic tips that actually will allow you to have the uncomfortable conversation, but the inevitable one that we all have to have with our parents or our loved ones about downsizing. So here goes. If you have a parent who is going to be facing a downsize soon enough, you want to save this video, you want to share it, or comment below if you have actually downsized your parents like I have, and tell me what was a win, what didn't work so well, or what you could do differently. So where do we start? I'm going to say the most important thing to think about is timing. A couple weeks ago, my sink in my kitchen was overflowing, and actually it wasn't overflowing over the top, it was overflowing underneath, and my kid comes into the kitchen and goes, "I'd like to go to the mall." And I literally could have just jumped across the room and shaken him up and said, "Are you kidding me right now? We are literally in crisis mode. The sink is leaking, your dad's on the floor, here I am with towels, and you want to go to the mall? Read the room," I wanted to say. I just looked at him and I said, "Not answering that question. Go away, we will deal with this later." So downsizing conversations are really no different than poor little Oliver asking to go to the mall at the absolute wrong time. Timing is everything. We have to be able to read the room and read the context of the conversation or the situation around us. So if you're watching this and your parents are facing the possibility of a downsize, or perhaps you really think that they need to consider what downsizing looks like, and perhaps it's more urgent than they would like to acknowledge, you want to make sure that you read the room and you pick the right time to have this conversation. The time to have the conversation, 100%, is not when there's a crisis happening. For example, in my situation, my mom fell, broke her collarbone, broke her pelvis, broke her hip, and we were forced to have it then. And I gotta tell you, it actually went pretty easily because she realized she couldn't do the stairs, a chairlift was not gonna work, didn't have the proper 4-piece bathroom on the main floor of her home. So for us, it kind of worked, but it wasn't amazing because all the things we did after to prepare her for the move were very rushed, were not ideal, and were completely under pressure for both us and her. And we had to buy a place for her without her even seeing it. So I'm gonna say that is not ideal for most people, but choosing the right time to talk about it, perhaps when you are helping your parents declutter or tidy up or helping them organize their home, that's a good time. At a happy family gathering, you might want to drop a couple of hints, like we should probably talk about that. So Thanksgiving, a long weekend, it's a really good time to sort of drop the hint and place the thought there and see how your parents react. This is not about putting a square peg in a round hole. This is about making sure that your parents are heard, that they have options, that they feel safe, absolutely safe. If I could just say that and underline it, they need to feel safe, and they need to be feeling like they are not being treated like a little baby that is just getting the diaper put on, forced into the stroller, forced here, forced there, because a lot of seniors that I meet that are not really happy about their children intervening or sticking their nose in their business, they feel like they're being told what to do and pushed around and shoved around and getting really anxious about having no voice in all of this. So pick the right time, and I would say approach is so important. Many of us, if we have parents who are aging, we may see their need and their reality before they are able to acknowledge it, and that is fine. That is many of us here today with parents or elderly relatives, we see it coming, we're watching it, we're very aware that they're having difficulty on the stairs, or we're seeing that they have difficulty tidying up the home or taking care of the home, and we see that it is absolutely time. But the point is, they need to be able to see that the time is right or it is soon approaching so that they can plan carefully, thoughtfully, and with a lot of care and patience, because they've probably been in their home for 30, 40, maybe even 60 years, and they are quite comfortable and probably not loving the idea of not being able to do things around the house, not being able to sort of exist without care. Perhaps it's the PSW that comes in, or a person who's mowing the lawn, and they used to love to mow the lawn. Whatever it is, they're starting to realize that they're not able to do the things that they once loved to do, and it's probably feeling sad and overwhelming. So pick the right time to have the conversation. And the next tip I've got for you seems like an obvious one, but it is not an obvious one. We work with a lot of seniors, and I have to tell you, the one resounding thing that I think a lot of people fail on, a lot of kids, young adult children, fail to do is listen to their parents. And I mean that wholeheartedly. We want to give our parents space, or our loved ones space, to have their voice heard. And sometimes it's really difficult. In some families, emotions run really high. I may be at a client's home and listening to everybody, and it's like the son has something to say, the daughter has something to say, the son-in-law has something to say, and all of these voices chiming in with thoughts, with suggestions, and my lonely client, the senior, is sitting there completely silent, doesn't want to say anything, doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, doesn't want to upset the daughter-in-law, doesn't want to upset their son, and their voice gets drowned out amongst the rest. So I'm going to say it's really important, if you are the child or taking care of somebody who is your dependent, a parent, an aunt, an uncle, please listen. Go there with the intention to help hear out what their idea of their downsize actually looks like. And if it seems completely illogical, that's okay, but you want to listen and you want to give somebody space to be able to say what they want, what they need, because for many seniors, they've been thinking about this for a long time and often just been unable to action on those next steps because they don't know how the finances work, perhaps, or they don't really know how the market moves. They're just feeling overwhelmed, or they get comfortable, or they have ailing health, so the prospect or the want or the wish to make a move or the downsizing when they were healthy no longer works because they're not in good state right now, so they just don't know what to do. So listen, 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 listen. Now, if listening hasn't worked so well, or if the sit-down conversation amongst you and your parents hasn't worked so well, here's my tip. Bring in a professional whose job and profession it is to actually listen and zone in on what that parent actually wants or needs. Because that's what I think I do best. When I'm in a room, all these different voices, what I'm interested in is what that person who owns the home is truly looking to do, and what was their vision and what was their thought. And lean into that, hear that, because often that's when the gears in my brain start to go and I can find a solution that makes sense. I can listen to everybody else's opinion, but this is not a tug of war. And in a lot of families, more voices, more hands in the pot, it does feel like a tug of war. And at the center of it is a vulnerable senior who's lived in their home, who's probably raised you all, who feels completely unnoticed, unheard, and it's awful to witness. So I'm going to say, bring the professional in. If in your family you cannot all work together in a cohesive manner to make sure that your parents' voices are heard and their wishes are honored, then do that. Bring the professional in early to help support you all, and who will put the professional hat on, not the emotional hat on. So they'll listen with sensitivity, but they will also guide with professionalism and with care. And if they've been through this before, they will say, this often works really well. This doesn't work so well. I don't recommend this, but we can consider that. So somebody who can bring you options as opposed to the one option that you want to press upon your parents. Let me ask you, do you feel comfortable letting your brother or your sister-in-law make decisions for your parents respective to their downsizing? Comment below and let me know if you are comfortable with one of you in the family making all the decisions for your parents. Every year I'm in front of many, many clients, but one specifically that I remember from a couple of years ago, where 3 kids in the room, all from different areas, one from Ottawa, one from downtown Toronto, and one from, I'm going to say it was Port Perry. So mom, who was still a young senior, was looking to support all of the kids equally so, but they were sort of in a triangular location from one another. And the mom was just completely paralyzed because one family needed support and needed her to watch the grandkids. Somebody else wanted her to visit and go to their place every 3 days or every 5 days, and she was supposed to rotate from house to house to house, supporting her children who she had raised. And at the end, when I had quiet moments with this client, I said to her, "Are you comfortable with that? Are you actually comfortable to spend a week at everybody's house?" And she's like, "Hell no. I just want my peace. I just want my quiet. I love my children. I love my grandchildren, but it's so noisy. It's so overwhelming. 2 of them have dogs. The dog's stepping on my feet or barking all day." And this poor lady was just looking for a home base of her own, a place to lay her head at night, a place to watch her own TV, and actually quiet, private space. So guess what? We ended up locating her almost the same distance from each child in a happy little town that was close to hospitals, close to transit, and close to a community where she could go and play bridge, go to the community center to swim. But in that moment of getting mom's stuff in a suitcase, moving house to house, was completely unappealing to her. And guess what? The kids were not hearing her out whatsoever. So sometimes it really does help to have a voice who is actually just dedicated to your parent, to hear them out and to be able to come back and play, I'm going to say, a little bit of a mediator between the family to make sure that person who's downsizing's interests are met and heard at the highest level possible. It's really difficult to do that if you get siblings in the room. I'm one of 3, and I gotta tell you, the 3 of us did not always agree on what should be done, how it should be done, when it should be done, and the responsibility or the burden of responsibility was never shared equally, if I could say so myself, and in many families, that is very, very common. All right, perhaps you have had a professional come in, which is what I recommend, highly recommend if you're watching this to figure out how to help your parents, is make that call to a professional after you've had the preliminary conversation. If the conversation's not going well at home with your parents, don't continue to hammer at them, don't continue to beat it over the head, leave it alone and bring in a professional and just gently suggest to your parents that what you think might be beneficial is to have a professional, whether it's a downsizing expert or a professional realtor, to just come in and talk about options. We're not signing paperwork to get this house on the market, to do anything radical. The house is not being sold out from under your parents' home. It is strictly a conversation, a fireside chat about what is important, what the priorities are, what the options are, and a conversation for your parents to be heard, and really to ask any questions that they have about the process of downsizing. That feels safe. That feels good. Having somebody come in to get paperwork signed to put your parents' house on the market does not feel good and safe. And I'm going to tell you, as a professional realtor, there are a lot of realtors who will come in and literally do just that. Come in under the guise of they're there to support your parents, and they're going to give them a lot of hard pushes and advice and got to get the house to the market, got to get to the house to the market. With downsizing seniors, that is not the approach to take. It's not comfortable, it doesn't feel good, and it's often not in the best interest of the downsizer. We want to gather information before we make that recommendation. When you have time and space to do things thoughtfully, you actually have power and control and leverage over the situation. And it is a wonderful thing to give to a downsizing senior to say, you are in control. This is not about the realtor, this is not about the kids, this is about your wants, your timetable, and us supporting you in the best way possible to make good choices. Now, in some families, for sure, there's resistance. Somebody has an urgent need. Physically, they're not able to manage staying in the home, and they really desperately want to stay put, and they don't want to downsize. Yes, we're used to those situations, and again, a higher level of skill and understanding and support is required to actually sort of unstick people like that. My parents were there long before they were in crisis mode. They just didn't want to downsize. And not everybody is actually going to be downsizing out of their home. Some people will live out their days comfortably in their home to the very, very end. But this message is for people who clearly need to downsize. So here's actually what works and works really well. After the initial discussion with a professional realtor or a downsizing expert, what I think works really, really, really well and is crucial to the success of this transition of downsizing is ensuring that your parents have options and they can actually get out and explore those options. Meaning, I'm not going to be moving if I don't have a clue where I'm going and I'm not a senior. So I'm not interested in selling my home today if I have no clue where I might end up. Why? Because I've got pets, I've got kids, I've got creature comfort built into my DNA, and I want to be able to see where I'm going so I have something to get excited about, so that I don't have a fear that I'm going to sell my home and be left homeless or have to move in with my kids. So I want to be able to go out and see what the possibilities look like. And I call that exploring options. What works really well after the discussion with a professional downsizer or a professional realtor is to get your folks out, and I'm going to say your aunt, your uncle, your mom or dad, out to see what possibilities exist. For me, unless I know where I'm going, unless I have some sort of foundational view of what my options are, I am going to resist change. So what I'd love to do is to go out and see what options there are, see what different communities feel like, see if I fit in. For seniors, it's especially important to make sure that there is a community that can surround them in most cases. Sometimes not. Sometimes people want to be really quiet and they want to be left alone, and they're looking for a nice quiet building, and they don't want to be dealing with joining the yoga group that happens or the bridge club. They're not interested in that. They're looking for safety. They're looking for quiet. They're looking for nice grounds where they can take a nice walk, and they're looking for access to transit. For other seniors who are super active, they're looking for a community that has a walking club in the morning, or a bridge club, or a poker night, or the bus tour to Casino-rama, whatever it is. Everyone is different, and everyone will discover what they really like, because if you haven't been out of your house for 30 or 40 or 50 years, perhaps you don't even know what you're missing. So with every single senior, I have to say, the point of exploration is to tap into something deep down that perhaps sparks some joy, some excitement, and creates opportunities for a new, wonderful downsize or possibilities in the next adventure, like I like to call it. So I can usually tell when I have clients out where something is hitting and it's wonderful, because I can see that little beam of excitement just go up, their eyes light up, or they just feel super comfortable. But we can only do that when we give time and space to look at options, and to look at them not under pressure, not shoving people in the car to take them from one apartment to another, to a bungalow, to a house, to a town. No, that does not work. That doesn't work for most young people. That is not going to work for anybody over 55 or over 65. What we want to do is take slow tours, give lots of time to look around, ask questions, make sure they're comfortable, and agents talk less, listen more. It's very possible that you will find things that you didn't know about your client out in these exploratory conversations or adventures out to look at new homes or condos or townhouses, wherever they're going. You're going to hear what your client likes, and you're going to discover what really makes them happy and comfortable in this next phase. There is no rush about this process. Again, the primary focus is the parent, the loved one, the mother or the father, and it is about making sure that they feel supported, that they do not feel rushed, because this process should not feel fast and furious. It is about getting this right and making sure that their voices are heard and they are supported fully throughout the entire process, from the very first consultation and right up until they turn the key to the door of their new home and they are settled and able to live happily ever after. So if you're watching this and you think you need some support or you need a professional to come in, as always, you know how to reach us, and perhaps you are just at the very, very preliminary stage and you just want to have a phone conversation, you're not ready for the consult, and you want some advice on how to best approach it. Again, that's what we're here for. It's about making sure that there's a plan and process that feels good and not compressed and rushed for your parents or your loved ones. Thanks for watching. I'm Jacquie Othen.